Environmental and social governance. This is the word I have been coming across nowadays, and almost in every corporation that requires corporate governance, there's been a buzz with this word. It is very ironic that this has come so late to me in terms of studies or practices. However, it has come to the right person who has been into the nature for a very long time, having climbed mountains and going into different ecosystems, like a mountain that has 5 ecosystems. Environmental and social governance enters boardrooms so much so that there is a need of taking care of the climate. She heard about Paris Agreement and went through a lot through whatsoever information was available, because suddenly there was a crisis, or a much needed attention was paid amongst the key dignitaries of the world or organizations. And that caught an attention as to what could be the crisis, and which is when I began to read about environmental and social governance and understood that it entered the boardroom and there was a huge need of it being incorporated in the corporate governance. So it has already reached and been mandated over the period of time. The companies which are big corporations are being asked for their ESG data. And this has also become effective and a concern for most of the governments, is because a lot of mining activities, or there are certain sectors that pollute or affect the environment in a big way for the sake of their economic benefit. Another one is to understand the impact of ESG and its role with the normal strategy of the business. Keeping this in mind, at least for the past 10 years after the Paris Agreement, when the climate crisis was realized by major economies of the world to plunge themselves into making efforts and also pulling their muscles together so that they can raise money as much as required. There are certain trends that have developed and one must pay attention to it. One very key, important and crucial word that most of the people nowadays are coming across while making their decisions is not the CSR but sustainability. How to sustain? Are we really on the brink of something so that we are keeping on talking about sustainability? And this needs to be understood well, because this is not very well or clearly defined area. Had it been, it would have been understood well, but it is not. As we come closer to it, we find it to be as commonsensical as it could be. However, we fail to understand why most of the population world across are failing to understand it, or rather putting it to practice. So it is important to understand and practice sustainability at core, and that comes often at the price of changing our own living values, which is difficult to do. Most of us nowadays are the most entitled creatures in today's time, which we don't want to let go of. Another trend that would be happening in environmental and social governance is its values changing the corporate culture. Now, the culture which takes such a long time to build up is not easy to change, and therefore often it shakes the leaders of certain corporations, because it requires a fundamental transformation and a radicalization, which is not desired, or rather which is not very easily likable to most. We will talk more on sustainability over the period of time. However, it's a good idea to begin discussing and also to begin paying attention to it. Stay tuned as we get along more on this.